If I were to solve this equation, I would subtract 1 from both sides, and I'm left with x squared equals -1. From here, we would take the square root of both sides so that you get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of -1. So let's just consider something we know. The square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. However, there is no number that we can think of that would give us -1. 1 times 1 is +1, not -1. And -1 times -1 is a +1, not a -1. So that's where the imaginary numbers come in. The imaginary unit I is defined as the square root of -1. So whenever you have a negative under the square root, that's when this will come in handy. So a pure imaginary number is written in the form a plus bi, where a is the real part and bi is the imaginary part. A and b are real numbers. I is what makes it imaginary. Okay, so let's evaluate these square roots that have negatives on the inside, because that is what's going to give us the imaginary unit I. So looking at this, you can see this as the square root of -1 times a +9. The square root of -1 is just I. The square root of 9 is 3. So your answer is 3I. Let me split it up even further. This can be written as the square root of -1 times the square root of 9. The square root of -1 is an I, and the square root of 9 is a 3. So your answer is just 3I. Is that better if I split it up further? Yeah. Okay. Let's do square root of -80. Let's split this up into square root of -1 times the square root of 80. I know this one is just I, okay? Now we're just going to split up this 80. What are two numbers that multiply to 80?
I meant 2 and 40.
Okay, 2 times 40 will give me 80. Let's split up this 40.
8 and 5.
8 and 5. And then this can be broken down into 2 and 4. And 4 can be broken down into 2 and 2. So guys, what we have here is I on the outside. You have 2 times 2, which is 4, times another 2, which is 8, times another 2, which is 16, times 5, which is 8. So whenever you have a pair, that goes outside. Here's another pair that goes outside. So 2 times 2 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. So here's a pair, you put it outside. Here's another pair, you put it outside. This one doesn't have a pair, so it stays there. So this is 4I square root of 5.
So it's still never going to be a negative?
No, whenever you have a negative on the inside, it becomes I. Okay, so guys, this can be written as the square root of -1 times the square root of 192. This right here is just I. Let's break this down. So what are two numbers that can give you 192? 48 and what?
4.
4, perfect. And let's break down 48.
6 and 8.
6 times 8 is 48. Let's break down the 6.
2 and 3.
2 and 3. Let's break down the 8.
2 and 4.
2 and 4. Okay, let me just stop there. Here's a pair of 4s that will go outside. Here's a pair of 2s that will go outside as well. So you're left with a 3. So your answer is 8I square root of 3. Do y'all need another example from this section, or can y'all do it?
I can do it.
Okay, y'all take a few moments, do the rest of them. So I'm going to solve this. I want to get x by itself. I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. So I'm left with 2x squared equals -8. From here, you should divide both sides by 2. And you're left with x squared equals a -4. Now that x squared is by itself, you can square root both sides. The square root will cancel out with the squared. You're left with x is equal to, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a negative is I. So this is your answer.
Wait, do you have to do the plus or minus?
Yes,
Okay.
because think of it as if it was just x squared equals 4, 2 squared is 4, and negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. There's always two answers when you do a square root.
Okay.
Okay?
Is it always gonna have the plus or minus when you do it like that?
Oh.
Yes,
And we did the I
Okay.
because it's a negative 4.
exactly.
Yep.
Whenever there's a negative in here, you have to have I.
It's starting to make sense.
Okay? So guys, the step between here and here, you can rewrite square root of negative 4 as square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. This is I. This is 2. So that's why I have 2I. Okay? All right, let's try this one. You're going to subtract 13 from both sides. You're left with x squared equals negative 12. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. Yep, so x is equal to plus or minus. I know I'm going to have I in my answer because there's a negative on the inside. You can break this down into 4 and 3. The square root of 4 is 2, and we don't know the square root of 3. If you want to break it down further, this is 2 and 2. So that's your pair, that one right here. Now we're going to look at powers of I. I is equal to the square root of negative 1. I squared, think about it this way. If you were to square this I and make it I squared and square this side, those would cancel out. So that means I squared is just negative 1. Those are the two you have to have memorized. Now we're going to do I cubed. I cubed is the same thing as I squared times a third I. I squared, we just said, was negative 1. So this is actually negative 1 times I. So this is just negative I. Next, let's do I to the 4th power. This is I squared. What exponent do I need here to get 4? 2. So, because 2 times 2 would give you that 4.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I squared is just negative 1. So this is negative 1 squared. We're replacing this I squared with the negative 1. What is this equal to? 1. So as long as you remember this one, you're good. I squared is negative 1. Okay, let's go on to I to the power of 5. Always start with I squared. What does the exponent need to be to get close to 5? 2, because 2 times 2 would give you 4, but you need to multiply by another 1 to get 5. So you get I to the power of 5. Okay, now remember, this is what's important. I squared is negative 1. So I'm just going to erase this and put negative 1. What is negative 1 squared?
1.
1. So this is 1 times I, which is just I. Let's try I to the power of 6. Always start with I squared. That's the only one we have to have memorized. 2 times what will give you 6? 3. And guys, I squared, what can I replace it with? Yep, I can replace this with a negative 1. So guys, what is negative 1 cubed? Negative 1. So guys, I'm going to pause here. Whenever you have a negative 1 to an odd power, it's going to be negative. You had an odd power here. Negative 1 to an odd power, it's always going to be negative. When you have negative 1 to an even power, like you did right here, it's always positive 1. When you have it to an even power, it's always positive 1. So odd will give you a negative answer. even will give you a positive answer. Please write this down. You need to have that memorized. Let's go on to the next one. I'll do it in green. I to the power of 7. Always start with I squared. What number multiplied by 2 will get you close to 7?
3.
3, because 2 times 3 will give you 6. But you need one more I to make it I to the power of 7. Okay, now remember guys, I squared is just -1. So I'm going to write this down again. But instead of I squared, I'm going to put a -1. Now look, my exponent is odd. So what will it be? -1. So this is -1 times I, which is just -I. And guys, there's a pattern developing. Here it was -1, next it was -I, 1, I. -1, -I, 1, I. -1, -I, 1 I, or something like that. That's the pattern. Okay, last one. We'll do I to the power of 8. Always start with I squared. That's the one you have memorized. Now, what do I multiply by to get to 8?
4.
4. So guys, I squared. Replace I squared with a -1. So now this is -1 to an even power. What will it be? Positive, so just 1. So that is your answer. So we're going to amp it up a bit. Let's try this one. Always start with what?
I squared.
I squared. So what will we multiply this 2 by to get close to 15? 7. That's 14. I need one more I to make it 15. You're going to replace I squared with a -1. Now, this is an odd power, so this will be a -1 times I, which is just -I. Okay, next one. You always start with I squared. 2 times what will get you 76 or close to it? 38. So I squared is just -1. This is even. So what's my answer?
1.
Yep, just 1. Before we tackle this problem, let me just remind you of something. X squared times x cubed is what?
X to the power of 6.
Nope, everyone says that.
Oh wait, X
That's
to
not
the
true.
power, X to the power of 5.
Yes, it's 5. Because x squared is x times 3 more x's. That's 5 x's total. So what you did is you added the exponents. You're going to do the same thing here. This is I to the power of 44 plus 14 is what, 58? So I to the power of 58. You always change it to I squared. 2 times what will get you 58?
29.
Oh.
29. So I squared is -1, and then you have the 29. This is odd, so that means this will stay negative. So your answer is -1. Okay, now we're gonna multiply. 4i times 7i is 28i squared, because there's 2 i's, so that's I squared. What is I squared?
1.
One.
-1, so your answer is -28.
Yep.
You have 2i cubed. So that means you have 2i multiplied by itself 3 times. So I have this 3 times, and then I have 5i. So 2 times 2 is 4, times another 2 is 8, times 5 is 40. And I have I times I times I times I. That's I to the 4th power. And we're not going to leave it like this. Always change this to I squared. What does this need to make 4?
Wait, hold on, 2.
A 2.
And then if it's positive, so it's going to be.
I squared is a negative 1, and this is an even power. So this will be a positive 1. So 40 times 1 is just 40. So your answer here is 40. When we're multiplying these, first, make sure you take care of this negative. When you have a negative under a square root, what do you know you'll have? An I. So this is I square root of 18 times I square root of 10. So let's multiply the outsides. I times I is I squared. And then you'll multiply the insides. This is square root of 18 times 10. Now, I'm not going to write this as I squared. 18 times 10 is 180. I'm not going to do that because I still got to break it up anyway. So you might as well just keep them separate. Okay? Because we're going to keep breaking it down. So we're going to break down 18 into what? You said 6 times 3, okay? And 10 can be 2 and 5. And then let's break down the 6, 2 and 3. Okay, so it's all broken down into the smallest parts. So this is just I squared is on the outside, and I have 2 times 3 times 3 times 2 times 5. Here's a pair, it goes outside. Here's a pair of 2s, that goes outside. So this is 6I squared, and the 5 is still on the inside. Now, I squared is just negative 1. So this is negative 6 square root of 5.
Do you have to, like, if we have a quiz or test over it, you have to write it like that, or could you just write it 6I squared square root of 5?
No, you need to write it like this.
Okay.
Simplify it as much as you can. This looks way simpler than this. Yes.
At the start, it says you have the I on the outside of the square root, and then it makes I squared. Is that because they're just multiplied together?
This is being multiplied.
Oh.
So I times I, you get I squared. And then square root of 18 times square root of 10, you can just write them together.
Oh.
Good question. Next one. All right, let's try this one. Whenever you have a negative on the inside, it'll be 8I square root of 54 times 5I square root of 7. Now I don't have negatives under the square root anymore. 8I times 5I is 40I squared. And then you can multiply the square roots together. This will be 54 times 7. And we can break this down. 54 can be what?
9 and 6.
Yep, 9 times 6 will give you 54. And 9 can be 3 times 3. 6 can be 2 times 3. Okay, so it's all broken up into the smallest parts. So what I have is 40I squared, and 54 times 7 can be written as 3 times 3 times 2 times 3 times 7. So here's a pair of 3s that goes outside. Do I have any more pairs? Nope, so that will just stay together. 2 times 3 is 6, times another 7, that's 42 under the square root symbol. 3 times 40 is 120. And I squared is negative 1. So this is negative 120 square root of 42.